I want to go to that next question about who do you think I should ask next?
Yeah, I nominate Nadine and Henning Wolf. Nadine and Henning are partners. Henning is one of the founders of it-agile in Germany. Um, Nadine left her first career as a hairstylist, a hair cutter, and became an agile coach. And they obviously met and fell in love and became a pair. And Henning also, they also had the rights, I think, uh, lean to the Lean Conference Europe and worked closely with David Anderson. And they hosted me many times at their offices, and we did train the trainer workshops. And Nadine and Henning got deeply involved uh, in my work and in the responsibility community, and certified in all of our work, and started training it. And then a couple of years ago, they made a proposal to it-agile that they be able to set up their own website, which is self-leadership in German. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Hi. This week's interview is with Nadine and Henning Wolf. They talked about doing relationship retrospectives, how it's so much easier to get better if you know what you want. And sometimes all they want is to have a loving partner. We also talked about their rule. Before you ask your partner what they want, you have to say what you want. I'm Yves Hanul from Who's Agile. My pronouns are he and him. Welcome to my channel. You see a lot of agilists around me on this screen. If you want to hear me interviewing, please click that subscribe button, because these are the people that I've invited so far. If you think I'm missing people, let me know in the comments. And that like button, well, if you liked today's interview, don't forget to click it. 3. Hello and welcome. Good evening, Nadine and Henning. I think I actually didn't ask you how to pronounce your name, but I assume that's how it is.
Yes, it is.
So welcome here, and here for the people that have been here, I can already show that the here is Belgium, where at this point this is where I am, and if I click immediately on it, then we move a little bit back to Hamburg, which is not that far let's put it. Distance from each other, I would say, and I think we're both at the same time zone. For me, it's 1917, so I assume it's kind of the same on your side.
Yes,
Is this correct?
Yes.
So, and let's bring both of you back here again. So that I always do this kind of introduction because I think for people it's nice to see a little bit where people are, where we are, the time frames in these remote time zones. We don't always know where people are, and it's. I know a lot of people that I sometimes don't realize. Oh, this is that far or this country, and so this kind of way, I hope to bring a little bit more transparency and visuality on where we are. So we jumped right into that, but Nadine Henning, who are you? Say us a little more.
who are you?
Yeah, I'm Henning. I studied computer science and specialized in software engineering. And so object-oriented programming in the 90s was my thing. And then I was introduced at the university to something called extreme programming. I think it was 1998. At that time, I was working at the university, and so we thought that seems to be fun. We should try it. So we asked for prisoners, but we could get students. So we tested it in projects with students, and and they loved it. We loved it, and I think it was maybe November or December 1999 when we did our first professional paid project using extreme programming.
Wow,
so,
That's very early on, because the Agile Manifesto wasn't even signed.
Yeah.
I know that the exact same time as writing software using something similar to extreme programming, but I don't even know if I realized that, what was extreme programming. And I say I know because I was creating a screensaver for that was counting down to the year 2000. So it was
Cool.
at the same time and that's how I discovered it, because indeed I was doing, well, yeah, testing a screensaver is pretty boring. So I wrote some tests that tested my screensaver, and I
Yeah.
thought it was very clever. And then a friend of mine said, "Well, if maybe you're clever, but you're not the first who thought about this. There's a group of people over there, and they do something that's called extreme programming, and you should listen to them because they do something similar." So
Yeah.
I remember that day and age, and object orientation and extreme programming. It felt like a match in heaven.
Yeah, really. And as you mentioned, we didn't know the word agile then, but people talked about it and said lightweight methods.
Exactly.
And they didn't mean well. Actually, my calling was to be some kind of agile evangelist. And doing so, I gave a lot of talks and wrote books and translated some books and met a lot of agile folks. And together with 10 colleagues, we founded it-agile in 2004. And I became the first CEO of it-agile. And the company itself is self-organized, and it's owned by the employees.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's nice, because there's a few other companies that did something similar. I have no idea if it was inspired by what you did, but I know IT Agile, but I had no idea it was owned by so that's really cool.
Yeah, it is, in fact. And
Yeah,
but I'm not a CEO anymore. I think I
they
stopped
voted you off the
after.
island or something like that.
No, I think I will tell you about
Yes,
later on
well,
more about that. But one of the ideas of IT Agile was never have full-time managers. So I never was a full-time manager, a CEO. I'm also trainer and consultant, and did a lot of Scrum trainings, Kanban trainings, leadership trainings. And what I do today is mostly leadership trainings. And I co-founded another company together with Nadine, selbstführen.de, where we are specialized in all the stuff you talked about with Christopher Avery. So we are doing the responsibility process and self-leadership as one important part of, maybe the most important part of leadership. Yeah.
yeah,
So that's what I do and who I am. Who are you?
I'm your wife.
Oh, I remember.
Yeah.
that's already a good start.
Yes, and I have a background in business administration, so I'm not in IT or natural born techie or something like that. But I came to it-agile in 2011, and had a role in the back office management at it-agile, but it was relatively fast that I just loved all the agile stuff. And also in the back office team, we try to do it in an agile way. And the more I learned about it, the more I wanted to teach about it and talk about it. And so I took the way of becoming a consultant as well, and became a systemic coach and a Kanban trainer. And then in 16, the Global Scrum Gathering in Munich was in 2016. Yeah. There we met Christopher Avery for the first time with the keynote about the responsibility process. We just stick with it. It was an easy model, but and the application is not that easy, but very valuable for us. Yeah, and so
And when you say us, you mean both professional but also personal, or am I going
yes,
to do
yeah,
that? Okay.
absolutely. With us, I think I mean human beings in general.
Okay.
Yeah.
As if you're we humans. Okay. Yeah, we make a joke out of it, but I understand it completely because I recognize a lot that it's like Christopher always says, he discovered it. It's not a model that he created. He discovered it, and it's about how we humans act and work, and we don't always realize it. But but I'm pretty sure that we'll talk more about the model and at multiple other parts and that. So thanks for sharing. It's interesting to see already because Nadine, what you explain, I've seen in multiple companies around me that we have somehow, and it could be back office people, could be other people, but then they look at how people work in the agile thing and like, wait a minute, this is interesting. And it's not the first time that I heard that people who were just there for back office or for, I don't know, for doing administration, and all of a sudden can I also be a trainer, or can I go to that training because it seems really odd and interesting, and how are you working? And there's many people who are drawn to that. So thanks for sharing because not always people realize that if we're coming like I'm also coming from the IT part, there is what part, but there's actually a lot of other people that look at it and say, this is interesting how you work. It's a lot less about extreme programming, of course, what we started talking about, but the whole concept, the whole idea of and basically taking responsibility and making life better for the people around it, in a sense. So that's I'm not surprised to hear these kind of stories, and I'm glad that we can share it because again, this is not always talked enough about, especially inside larger organizations. They don't always realize that because sometimes now agile is sold inside larger organizations and they have to do it. And then we come into a lot of people who are rejecting it or don't understand it. But the people who actually see it into work, they kind of a little bit like what you say, Nadine, you see it and you say, oh wait, well, can I have my piece of it, because it really seems to make life better in a sense, and that's what I'm hearing. Okay, let's jump into that first question. And what is something that people usually don't know about you? And you in this case is both of you, of course. So who wants to start off with this one?
Yeah, I can start. What people usually don't know about me is that I started my maybe career, my time after school with an apprenticeship at a hairdresser. So I know how to do a haircut.
So you practice a lot on your husband, and
I need to practice. What could I do? That's maybe not the most surprising part, but at that time I was really, really shy. I really was afraid of people. I didn't have much fun about conversation, connecting with people. I was really, really shy, introvert, and I didn't want to have that fear anymore. And that's why I chose this career step. And and maybe that's an extreme therapy.
Oh, you chose because if I think about hairdressers, they are in constant conversation with their, well, I was about to say patients, but I mean with their clients. I can imagine if you're introvert and very shy. That's a hard step to take.
Yeah. But I think for me it was a necessary step to take to just experience that nothing happens talking to people. I'm okay. and nothing wrong about connecting with people, talking to them, and just be myself. So, but today I give talks, I give trainings, and sometimes that at that time when I was a teenager or something like that, it was not imaginable for me that I could do such a job one day. And so that's not something people assume when they see me now.
That's indeed for many people sometimes, and I think it's very important that you share it, because sometimes people. I was also very shy when I was a teenager. I was really the one reading the books and not talking to other people, and stuff like that. And people don't always realize that we somehow take a path and then we talk to other people. And if I go back, for example, to my school, I just had a school reunion a month or two ago, and I'm still a lot more that shy person when I'm there than even there was some people that I actually physically worked with at work, and at work they know me extrovert, and then I'm back there and against, wait a minute, and so, yeah, I'm again in that same location, in that same headspace. Let's put it like that. Um, and it's good for I also for example for my children, that they understand that okay, you can move on, and it's not that this is better or that's worse or better, that it's not about that, but it's about sometimes you can learn. And what I'm hearing with Nadine is that it was a conscious choice that you said, I want to move away because for whatever reason I didn't like it, or at least I wanted to have a larger world and have other options.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
and how did that? What inspired you to do that?
I think I just wanted to be freer and more powerful.
But
And
you thought that being a hairdresser would do that trick to you, or not?
No, but not the hairdressing part, but the being confronted every day with my biggest fear at that moment. And that for 2.5 years during that apprenticeship, I think that was it. And it was hard, but I think I grew a lot from that.
I can imagine, and it's also it takes a lot of guts and understanding from yourself that okay, if I take this path, it will take me a year or two, but I will grow from that. So that's a really nice story.
And I love to cut hair. That's also true. And it's nice to have a job. Hair is always growing, so I can do. I have a job every time.
Yeah, so it's definitely something that will not go away. Maybe there could be machines that do it, but probably not. Probably there will still be humans that will keep cutting hair for a long time. Every human needs to have cut, well, except indeed maybe a lot of men don't need it, or need it a little less at some point, but still most women will need it for the rest of their lives, so that there is a job in there. So that's there is some job security in that sense. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. Henning, what's your story?
Yeah, I think my story is that when Nadine and I became Nadine and me, so 10 years ago, we decided from the beginning that we are doing relationship retrospectives. And we once told that on a bar camp, and someone in the audience said that is the nerdiest thing they ever heard. But I think it's really useful to do that. So we are doing it now for 10 years. And I think in the beginning it was every 4 to 6 weeks. Today it's 3 or 4 times a year.
Yeah.
And We love to do that, and we are always following the 5 steps. So doing agile retrospectives like Derby Larson introduced it, and it's fun. It wasn't in the beginning. I think there was also some fear that maybe there could be maybe something will come up that is uncomfortable or something like that. But actually, we never invented a problem that hasn't been there before. So the retrospectives were a possibility to address them and to grow together.
And what I'm hearing is it gives you some kind of framework to deal with problems that exist, or issues that exist even before they become large. Because
Yes.
a lot of times when couples come into problems, it's because we don't have a certain issue, we don't talk about it, and then we only talk about it when it explodes, and that usually is when it's too big.
Yeah.
And if you do it very regularly, what I'm hearing is that you have a way to deal with these before they're actually becoming a problem. That's very nice.
Yeah, it is.
It's
So I
yeah.
highly recommend it.
I have the trouble that my partner, when I'm using ideas from the techniques, and it's like, no, let's keep that on your job. So I still am in the phase, although I do a lot of the things that, yeah, it's normal, because if you use all these techniques all the time, you learn a lot of that. But if it's too obvious, then so a formal retrospective, I don't think we would do, but indeed we've done similar kind of things. And the idea of retrospective, I think all good couples do it at some point in time, that you want to talk about issues in a normal way before they become problems, because otherwise it doesn't help. Well, it's dangerous. Well, dangerous is maybe too wrong, but yeah, it's you need to deal with it when problems are smaller, and retros for me is the perfect moment to do that kind of thing. So that's it's a very nice story to share.
Yeah.
And of course, we also talk outside of retrospectives. But
you still do, okay?
Yeah, we still do. But it's just helpful to have this point in time where you can ask yourself whether you forgot to mention something, and now is the time to bring it up, and not to wait another 5 years and then be really pissed at your partner. So yeah.
And
Yeah,
and
go ahead.
no, we don't have a facilitator for that.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
we facilitate that on our own.
Yeah, which is that's something that is interesting for retros, but of course in a marriage it's a logical step to take, to do that with just the two of you. Although for me for me, that, well, I was thinking while you were starting to explain that it feels sometimes like what some people do in couples therapy, where you have a facilitator.
Yes.
And I think, well, I've been open about it. There was points in my relationship where my partner and I, where we had troubles, where we actually had someone helping us out, and it helps at some point. And in a sense, for me, it was a lot easier, for example, than for my partner, because in a sense, it's my job. I help other people that have troubles communicating, and that I realize at some point, okay, it's good to have someone who helps out. But and there's no shame in asking someone to help out for them on these things. I prefer to do this than to quit, than to say, well, it's not working, go bye. No, I prefer to ask for help at some point and say, okay, could someone help us, or could you or whatever help us to start talking again, or listening, and because it's mostly listening, it's not the talking, it's the listening part that's usually the hardest part when things are in trouble. It's very nice. It reminds me, it's a little bit different, but it reminds me 10 years ago, I was working in a different country, and so I moved with my whole family, and at that time well, if you're moving to another country, you're completely removed from your network, so you're removed from your friends. And at that time, my partner and I, we literally took the time every evening to have a small conversation. And it took a while to realize it, but it was a kind of daily. It was at the end of the day, but basically we were talking about, okay, what did I do? I was at work and whatever, but and what did you do? Okay, you were with the children, and how does, is there anything that we need to share? Not as in a retro part, but more on a daily basis, like, okay, what else is there information that we need to know about tomorrow, about what happened today, and stuff like that. And it if we talk about it and explain to people, and it's like daily, it's like, this is nerdy, but wait a minute, this is just about communication. This is just making sure that we as a couple communicate, and we share the things that need to be shared, like in a team on a daily basis. Why do we do this? We share because we have information that the rest of the team needs to know, and it's a little bit the same thing.
Yeah.
Big surprise that the things that we do in an agile world in a larger team can help also a small team that is a couple. I mean, it's yeah, I really like these kind of stories because it makes us think really hard, or at least me really hard, about what's a team, what's not a team, at what level do we need, and oh, I don't know if that, and I think I kind of heard it because you said you do this less on a lesser basis, so just a few times a year. What I've seen is that when things are going really well in a team, and at the same time, if you're a couple, this is a small team, is that sometimes some of these communication structures they fall down. We need them less. But the moment that things are becoming stressful, if there's problems, then we need to stick more back to the rules. So I can imagine, and is this the same thing for you, that when things are a little stressed for whatever reason, maybe more work, maybe there is a big personal thing coming up, that you need to go back to more retrospective on a regular basis? Is that something that you recognize, or?
Yeah, I think we would do that. And normally we decide at the end of retrospective what is a good cadence for that. So
okay, so every time you do
when to
one,
do
you
the next
say,
one, and maybe on some occasions when we think, okay, whatever we decided to change now needs readjustment in 3 or 4 weeks, then we would do another retrospective then. Yeah.
okay, where you kind of say, okay, we think this is a good thing, but let's consider to talk again in that kind of moment to redo that. That's yeah, that's I this there is already a very strong message, that because we sometimes forget that as a team. We do a retro, we have an idea, and we sometimes forget to say, when will we reevaluate if that's a good thing or not? Because we always think when we start something that it's a good idea, but let's face it, it's not always the case. Maybe we're overshooting it and making it too complicated. Maybe it's not good enough, whatever.
And maybe we just started and didn't really do it. Yeah.
Exactly. And so that's so having that reevaluation, and especially if it's on the border, like it's helping but maybe not good enough, then reevaluate. If it's completely wrong, we will very quickly decide this is not helping and we'll stop doing it after 2 days. But if it's somewhere on the border, then it's good to have a moment that you said, okay, we agree to reevaluate. Does it really help us? Yes or no? Do we need to adjust it a little bit? I like that addition that you added to that. Thank you. Let's move to that second question, and the one that it says, if you had not been to IT, and for me, I should actually rename it. If you had not been into the role that you're doing now, what could have become of you? And I already heard hairdresser, but other things were that could have become.
I became my first computer when I was 13 in 1983. So it was very fast, very clear that this was the direction. But before, I thought a lot about a lot of other things I could do with my life. So I thought of becoming a
So
lawyer
from
or teacher or something like that. So So I guess with the experience I now have in teaching, I would say if there hadn't been IT, I probably would have ended up as a teacher.
And when you talk about that very first computer that you got, is that from every moment from then till now that there was always IT somewhere related in that, or are there moments that you were kind of drifting away from it, or?
I guess so. I think that the last thing I programmed was maybe a VHS recorder or something like that. So I'm not
Okay.
not really doing any programming any longer.
Mhm. Yeah,
and
of
for a
course.
lot of years now. And sometimes I'm really feel sorry about it because I liked to do programming.
Mhm.
It was fun to do it, to invent new worlds and to have someone really doing what I tell them to do, or the computer tell them what to do, and
Yeah,
he
that's
really
part
does
of
it.
being a programmer. You're in
Yeah,
charge of
yeah.
the thing.
But I think it became very fast, very clear that even IT is people business, and all of it is people business, whatever we do. Like for everyone else, it becomes very clear, especially now with a lot of remote workers, that everything is IT. So everything is IT and people. So I think we can't avoid both. So we have IT parts and we have a lot of people business in whatever we do.
And
And I
there
think
is
it's,
always a link between
yeah,
computers, and there's always a link with people, and
yeah.
and
And I love it.
for
I
whatever.
think it's cool. Both is cool. So I'm happy with it.
So you're happy with it. And Nadine, for you, what? How is that?
Mm,
Because from a hairdresser to where you are now, there is probably a few careers in between. Or am I wrong?
as a child, I think I wanted to be an author. I just
Mm.
loved and I think it's related to this my introvert side. So I loved this thought of just sitting at home and quiet, using my imagination to write things when I
Creating
want
your
to.
own world.
Yeah,
You said.
in my own world and on my own terms. I can work
Mm.
when I want to work. I can not work when I don't want to work. So I think that was the idea behind it. And
Okay, so
that's
even then, as an introvert, because I see a lot of people, indeed, the introverts is like we like our own little world. But you also said, for me, something important. I could decide when to work and when not to work. I was totally not even thinking about these kind of things when I was young. But for you, that was already kind of part there.
yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Maybe I didn't think about that in this so deep when I was a
Mhm.
child, but I think that was the idea behind it. And somehow that's the way I work today. So turns out,
Not much has changed.
yeah,
It's a lot of change, but still, in the end, it's what you wanted to do
yeah,
in that sense. Except that now you talk to a lot more people.
yeah, and that's cool.
Now it's cool,
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
and at that time it felt maybe
Yeah,
very scared. Okay,
yeah.
so that's and is there anything in that whole discussion in that part when you did this that was different? Because like you say, now you create your own world. Was there a moment when you felt less in control of that world, or on how you when you could work? Is there a part in the middle there, or were you always able to create your world the way you wanted to do it?
Mm, I'm not sure. I think this connection between my childhood dream of becoming an author and that these conditions are the ones I live in now. That just was a recent thought because
Mm.
when COVID hit, it was yeah it became reality that I'm stuck at home and
Like all of us.
yeah And and I think it's just a couple of months ago that I thought of that is somehow a childhood dream.
And so I like the way you phrase it also with COVID, that you realize that, because I'm not going to, you don't hear me say that COVID was all good. There's a lot of negative things we all hated, a big part of that. But you're not the first one that said that thanks to COVID, I realized some nice things as well. And
Yeah.
so the fact that you're able to mold your own world and to do it the way you want is something that you realized thanks to the pandemic, in a sense.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
and that is something nice to share, because one of the things that I've noticed is that we've been talking a lot the last 2 years about the negative parts, and again, I'm not going to want to throw them away. They were definitely there. There's definitely a lot of parts that were not good, but it also made a lot of us think real hard about our lives and about what do we want to keep from that negative part of that life, and to turn it into something that is more positive in a way. And that I'm hearing very clearly with you, like, okay, that part, at least for now, I don't want to throw away. I want to keep this, and to keep working that way. It's thanks for sharing that, because that is indeed what I hope that a lot of us could learn from that world. That, okay, I think we all been into the rat race for a long time, and we all did a lot of things for whatever reason, and one small step more into a world that was less ours. And then the pandemic hit, and now it's kind of a reboot. And a lot of us, we kept thinking about, okay, which part of the old world and which part of the new world do I want to keep, and how could I make it even into a world that I like more? And well, then we need, of course, we'll talk again in 5 years to see how much of that life we can still keep doing. But I think a lot of us, we think really hard about that. So that is nice to share that. I want to move to that next question. What is your biggest challenge? And of course, I think especially if you know about the responsibility model, it's your responsibility to share the biggest thing that you want to share. I'm mentioning it as a kind of a joke, but I reckon sometimes in the after talk, people say, well, there was actually a lot bigger, but I don't want to talk about it on camera, which is of course fine. It's your responsibility to share what you want to share. So what is it to share there?
Yeah, I think we have a challenge together in building our Selbstführen self-leadership business. So it's a very small business. It's 2 persons. So 2 people doing this business, and we have customers, but we are still struggling with finding enough customers for our courses. And the other part of your question was, how is it useful?
Why is it a good thing? Yeah, exactly.
And I think it's useful, at least for me, in 2 ways. And the first is to use the third key to responsibility, confront. So it makes me, it makes it necessary to confront myself with how can I be of value to other people. So it's nothing that I can just take as a given. And in the last 18 years of being very successful with it-agile, it somehow became a given. So I can be useful to others, and they already know how I can be useful for them. And so we are doing that now, new. So we have to start new and start over. And the really cool thing about being a small company is you can really be agile. So we can have a strategy meeting, and 3 hours later, we changed our website. And
because you don't have to deal with other people, and you can just
yes,
okay.
Yes, we are so fast, and we can evaluate things very fast and change them come back to what is it we really want to focus on, and there are not so many people involved, and so it's really cool to have this really agile speed you only get if your team is small enough, and your responsibility, the end-to-end responsibility is big enough and important enough. So that is really cool and useful for us.
Because everybody in the team shares that same goal, and you only need to talk with one other person to say okay, and so that is a lot faster, of course, than if you have a larger company. So that is indeed it's a nice challenge to have. I would say it. Of course, I can understand you still need to have the money, so of course it's important to also solve that problem. But at the same time, I like the way you phrase it about that other part, the fact that you can basically, what you're also saying is that you can have small experiments, because you try something out, you only talk to one more person, that person agrees with you or disagrees. You might even disagree, but you might agree on, okay, let's try this out. We change something to the website, and we very quickly see, oh, it's working or it's not working, and then you can move to the next step. So that is a very nice part. So that's
and like I think it's from this lean startup world. The solution, especially when you're talking about acquisition, it's normally not here in our building. So it's not in our office. So you
have to go out there.
We have to go out there. We have to confront the world with us and us with the world, and that also helps to learn a lot about what do people really need, and what triggers them, and why do some people think that the stuff we are doing, the responsibility immersion course, for example, and some people don't see why it could be useful at work. They think it's something you do for yourself, only for private reasons or for your personal relationships. But of course, there's a big connect to leadership, but it's not their fault if they don't see it. It's ours. So how can we make this happen, that people see it the way we see it? And
it's interesting that you bring it, because indeed we're one person, so personal and life, there is I don't like the idea of work balance, because for me it's like there is no balance. It's one person, it's one thing, it's integrating. And indeed I like the way you phrase it, because you say some people see the responsibility as, no, this is personal, where in I see it a lot more in work, that or I use it a lot more in work, where people say, okay, but it has nothing to do with personal, this is about taking responsibility at work. No, it's both. And so you have the opposite problem. That's really interesting that to hear this kind of thing. You wanted to add something to this, Nadine, or you think Henning hit it?
No, I think that's my answer too.
Nice. Let's move to that next question then, that what drives you? And with drive is really like, okay, is there a passion? And I feel already, well, I think the fact that you both already said we learned about something, and then we turned it into a company, that I feel there's a lot of passion there. So do you know from yourself or from your company, what's the drive or the passion behind this?
I think this has layers, but but I just start somewhere. I think what drives me, or what has driven me for a long time, is I always wanted to get better. I wanted to improve. Maybe that's why I stuck so quickly with these agile methods. And what I learned because of the responsibility process is that it's so much easier to get better or to improve myself when I know what I want. And so I learned about intention. And so I think intention is my new driver, that I just want to know what I want. And yeah, I think that's a driver for me. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's really nice how you say, I wanted to improve things. My driver was, I was insanely unsatisfied with the status quo. Whenever I had an idea of things could be better, they needed to change. And I needed to be the person to change it. So I was really driven in it needs to be better, higher, faster, whatever.
But it's also, I hear that it was also important that you were the person who was doing it. So if I would have made it better, that would not have been enough for you. Is this the correct interpretation or not?
Maybe I had an idea of I would have to make you make it better. So, but somehow it had to. It must be my creation. So somehow, yeah. Interesting. I'm going to think about it, but it's not what drives me now, because I think it's a helpful model, but in the extreme, and it's what we do in Agile, isn't it? We're using retrospectives and always finding better ways of developing software, blah, blah, blah. So it's what we do somehow. But it was to such an extreme that I think it was hard for other people to follow. Because I really often got the question from teams and colleagues, will there ever be a moment when you are satisfied? And I was sure never. There will never be this moment. And so what you get then is that you are always unsatisfied because it's your driver. So you want to be unsatisfied, actually. And it's not very healthy, I think. It's not helpful for your relationships, and it's not helpful for yourself. And to be honest, in a lot of ways, the world is okay as it is. So it doesn't always wait for Henning Wolf to improve it, unfortunately. But if
it sounds like that was a really hard discovery for you.
Yes, it was. Yes, and I think it wouldn't have been possible without the responsibility process and being in the Leadership Gift program and working with Christopher and Bill McCarley, and yeah.
And I think a couple of years ago, you often said paradise must be hell because there's nothing to improve. And
what a boring world! When
Exactly,
there's nothing to improve. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think nowadays we can enjoy paradise and much more.
Yeah.
And we can change nevertheless. That's not a contradiction. It's I can be fine and I can improve myself.
It can be a choice when to improve something and when not to improve.
Yeah,
that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Yes, and
where
so
before, do I understand it that before, if you were somewhere and you saw something that needed to be improved or that you just had an idea, you also had to express it and to make sure that the world knew that, oh, this could be improved, or am I wrong?
Yeah, often enough, I needed to be the smarty pants guy. Yes. Yeah. And today it's not my driver any longer. It's my driver now is I want to be free, powerful, and a choice. And I want to help other people to be as free as they want to be. And that doesn't mean it's just a private thing. You can also do that while you are a leader, a coach.
In every role.
In every role, in every organization, you can be free and make your own choices and
be powerful.
Be powerful and deliver valuable work.
And you can still choose to work and improve things, but it's now more a choice, where before it felt kind of a, yeah, almost a religion or something that you needed to do. And I can imagine that that could easily turn into some kind of burnout thing, in the sense that you needed to always improve or something like that. So that and yeah, I recognize a lot of myself in what in your story, because I see a lot of that myself as well. I'm not sure if I'm already there where you are, but yes, I can recognize that it's already easier for me now than 10 years ago to say, okay, no, okay, I can leave this alone and not say improve things. Where before, if I would follow a course, I would immediately after the course give a 10 ideas on how things could have been improved. Where it feels like a smarty pants answer, where you just want to help out, and it's like, okay, but if the rest of the world is not asking for that feedback, then probably it doesn't help. And it's much better that you, if then somewhere say, if you ever are interested, I might give you some ideas. And if people say no, I'm fine, it's like, okay, then I'm not going to give you anything. And that is releasing a lot of people from pressure, I think. And that's really nice how you explain it, because it becomes now a choice for everyone, to help out or to not. That's that is And then it's again, it's a personal thing. Yeah, it's again about, like you say, it's people, IT. Well, it's a choice, where if it's a computer doesn't have a choice, let's put it that way. If a computer sees something to improve, the computer will tell you, oh, computer says no or says wrong or whatever. Where now you're almost into the personal part, where you say, I decide to give people feedback, or to not do something, or to enjoy, like you say, to enjoy heaven, and in a sense, and enjoy paradise. uh, where the previous version that I'm hearing is, you would be in paradise and we would be giving advice on how to improve paradise and not enjoy the paradise, in a sense.
Or maybe bored out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Nadine, how was that? Because I can imagine that if you're with a person that wants to improve all the time, that can create a lot of friction between the two of you at some point.
I think I just was the same. I think
ah
it
you,
was the same driver, so it was easy, and I think it was
and
just
dangerous, I can
a little
imagine,
bit
because if you
dangerous,
build on each other.
and I think it was really annoying for colleagues if we, especially when we were in the same team and we both were this kind, yeah, sometimes kind of obsessed about this improvement. I think that was just annoying and not helpful, and didn't lead to followership or to leadership in others. So
And then you got frustrated because people didn't take
yeah,
responsibility,
sure, yeah,
and in a sense, you were taking responsibility away from them, because you were seeing all the problems, in
yeah,
a sense.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a very nice story to share, and I can imagine that if people from IT Agile or other colleagues from the past look at this and say, "Oh, they learned. Okay, they're there."
Okay, so I
Did
have a
you?
message for you. If you belong to this group, you still have to improve.
Yeah,
But
and
did you get a lot of feedback in that sense from your colleagues? Did you get that feedback, or how did you learn, basically? How did you got from the past version of the two of you to where you are now? What is there?
yeah, I think as you described it, we were in lay blame, so we thought
Hmm.
others had to change, and that's and we just experienced that won't work, that won't change a thing. So it's our self leadership that leads to a change.
Yeah. And then after lay blame, it's
Justify.
justify. No? So the system isn't built for improvement and people are not incentivized. So it's not their fault, it's the system. And then it's in shame. So we can't make ourselves clear. So maybe an obligation, we thought we need to scream louder and confront them harder on what they are doing wrong.
And
then,
now all of a
if you
sudden, now
really think
you're
about it, what do you want? You want to create an environment where everyone loves to work and feels responsible and is part of the improvement. And then you get other ideas how to achieve that and how to build teams around this idea of how can we improve in some part of the company or in only one project, and do that together and not just driven by Nadine's and Henning's drive, insanely driven ideas of how to not
achieve perfection.
Yeah.
I like the way you bring the whole story, because this shows also not just where you are, part of the path that you take, and indeed the hard these things, because that's what the lay blame part is so easy to relate to, and of course for the people who know the responsibility model. We all go to that lay blame part. We all go to the different steps, and some parts in our life we have a favorite island where we keep getting stuck to. But it's nice that you can bring this on the whole story and how you got there from the both of you on where you are. And I think this helps a lot of people, or at least when I realize how that path is helping, it also helps to explain the whole model and everything around it. It's like, okay, this is what helped me to get there, and okay, it might help them at some point to go to that next part. So thanks for sharing.
And I want to emphasize that we are still in the mental state of lay blame today, because we are human. It's not that we are 100% in responsibility all day long. That it doesn't work that way. So, but I just ask myself more often: do I want to be in the state of lay blame, or do I want to choose something different? And that's the valuable question.
Yeah, it's the well. I like I said, I think we all have our favorite islands, and I also think that we all have our islands that we're allergic to. That we think that, okay, when a person is in that island, I know for myself if people are in the shame, that I notice it immediately, and I have lots of trouble with that. But it's good for myself to realize when I know about this model, okay, this is part of, okay, what I don't, and I definitely know that at some point I'm on that island, but I don't always realize it because I'm so allergic to other people being on that island, and just talking and understanding that model and helping, well, talking about it helps a lot for where we are, and and like you say, it's okay to not always take responsibility. Well, it's not okay, but it's normal, because we're humans to be in that state, and just realizing it helps us a lot to get past to that stage and to recognize, oh, I'm now in this stage or in that stage, and that. And because you both know this model and you use it, I assume kind of both professional and personal. Is it allowed for one person to talk to the other and saying, okay, you're in blame, or how does that work? Can you work around that in your partnership, or how does that work for both of you?
I think we had a deal about it very early on, so that I allowed Henning to ask me in a friendly way, and to give a hint that I might be below the line.
And the deal works both ways. And normally we end up with the power question, what do you want? And sometimes it's just a hug that might be helpful.
Yeah.
Not a
Yeah,
solution.
but having that question makes me basically, it's a kind of hack that tells you, oh, I need to think about that model and about what it is. Because a question is of course less blaming than or in what model are you, or on what island are you stuck, or whatever. So that helps a lot. That's yeah, I recognize that part. Um, yeah, asking a person where are you stuck doesn't really help, and actually I like also the way you phrased it, Nadine, in a gentle way, because when you're stuck somewhere, you're stuck, and the more people mention you that you're stuck, yeah, it's a little bit like an engine that it's not starting, and getting angry, why don't you start, doesn't help the engine kick starting faster.
Yeah.
No, it's actually taking a step back, relaxing, and only then restarting an engine will probably have more chance of launching the engine than retrying it and pushing it. Why are you stuck there? Doesn't help either, I think.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah,
nice,
and
and I like the way you phrase it. The what do you want? It's a very open question.
yeah. And in addition, we have a deal whether so the normal mode is that we are partners. And so the special mode you have to ask for is if you want a coach. So sometimes
I switch roles.
yeah, sometimes we switch roles, and then the other one says, okay, I would like to have you as my coach now, not as my
Wow.
partner. And that is quite important, I think, because
But it's a
sometimes
request, so it's the person that wants it that asks it.
yes.
Yeah.
And so you do not do any coaching without being asked here.
Yeah. And sometimes
So
I discover in that conversation that I just want a loving husband right now. I just want this hug, and I don't need a coach. I don't need smart questions. I just want to feel loved and seen and safe, and that's it. Yeah.
yeah, I think this is a very important message that you bring there, because indeed, sometimes I'm stuck and I don't want someone to solve it. Just give me a hug and leave me alone and let
Yeah.
me cry or whatever. And then tomorrow after I wake up, I'll figure it out on my own, or
Yeah.
I might ask for help at that time. But tonight, just give me the hug and that's it.
Yeah.
That's a little bit what you're saying. That is indeed a very powerful way to, well, kind of protect yourself, in a sense, that setting the boundaries, like, okay, I don't want a smart ass, or I don't want anyone helping out because I'm not in the mood for finding the problem. I liked it also because it reminds me also about retrospective. For me, a retrospective, it's important that we come to actions and whatever, but from time to time, a team needs just to vent and to just bring in stuff, and we shouldn't do it all the time. It should not be too often, but from time to time, a team needs just to vent and to say, okay, today it's a retrospective where we just blurt it all out, and we want some empathy and somebody who's asking a little bit, but not a coach that will ask us to find solutions and what action we want to take. No. Today we're just into the venting mode or whatever. It's we need the love and everything around it. We need a hug, but not more. That's a little bit what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah.
I think that is a very powerful message, because and I think, well, I just speak for myself, but I think a lot of men have that kind of thing. We want to solve problems, and we want and sometimes you just want to, no. I want the hug. I want anything else, but don't try to solve it. Leave me alone with that kind of part. It's like it's a very powerful message, and if you can say that into in any kind of relationship, not just a love relationship, but any kind of relationship. Not today. It's the love and the empathy that I want. Basically, that's what you're saying. That's a very powerful message. I want to go to that next question about what's the biggest achievement, and it could be both of you together, both of it. Basically, this is the moment to brag, but what are you really proud of?
Yeah. I think we hope that our biggest achievement one day will be the Selbstführen company, so the new company. And you can maybe tell more about that dream. I think my biggest achievement until now, besides having a daughter, is the co-founding of it-agile, making it employee-owned and self-organized, and in addition, making it sustainable enough that I think today it's not necessary for me to be part of the company. And I think that was totally different 10 years ago. And I think it was also different because I didn't want it to be independent from me. I wanted it to be, I wanted it to fail when I leave, I think.
Wow, that's very powerful as a message to recognize now in hindsight, of course.
And I changed that, and also colleagues and friends made me change it. And you already said the word burnout. I never had one, but I was maybe near enough to see that this is not the way. So when my friend Stefan and I did the CEO stuff together for about 7 or 8 years, we started with this idea of our goal must be that this company can run without us. So it's not dependent from us. And I think we achieved that step by step, doing a lot of stuff, making people more powerful, empowering them, teaching them the important parts. We had a CEO apprenticeship program before the new CEOs started in their new role, and then they had to deal with COVID. So they really have proven themselves. So it was really cool that they did.
I want to go back a little bit because you said we started it with the idea that they didn't need it, but you also said before, like in my head, I wasn't really wanting that.
Yes.
So even that you started that company in your head, you were not ready to accept that. Did I hear this correctly? Or
yes, you did. And looking back, it becomes clear when I was in the situation. I think I hadn't figured it out that I don't really want that. That I'm not ready to let go of my importance and the importance of my role, my leadership for the company. But I think the really cool leadership, and that's the reason why I think I'm using it to brag and to call it my achievement, is that I was able to let go and to accept that things are not always the same way I would have done it, but that it's still successful, and it can be successful without me, and it's allowed to be successful without me. And
it's interesting because you say that idea was kind of there at the start, but you were not ready to accept it. So even somehow in your head, it was there because that was an idea that you expressed without understanding it, what it meant, and then still achieving it. It's very nice. It's a nice achievement. to state. And I can imagine that for a lot of people that knew you at the start, they probably saw that progression, and they can probably say, okay, yes, indeed, you made a lot of progress. That is indeed a nice achievement.
Yeah, thank you.
Nadine, what do you want to add to this?
Yeah, I think I want to brag about being CEO of a company, and yeah, that we founded together, but that I could be able to create a company that was not in my imagination 10 years ago, I think, or 5 years ago maybe. And so that's really cool.
And probably also that very introvert girl years ago,
Yeah,
that
sure.
probably would be even more
Yeah.
very strange to her.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm still scared, but it's cool. It has so many aspects in it, and I love to learn. I still love to improve myself, so that's the challenge. But it's also cool.
But it's indeed it's a nice achievement on its own. Again, like you say, there is always things to learn. There's always things to improve. But if you look back from where you came and then say, okay, like now I did it, and next to a person that had, if I exaggerate a little bit, that had difficulty letting go of control, so that's also on top of it, because you did that. Because in that sense, you did that together. I would assume. Just the creation of the new company, but also for you, Henning, the fact of letting it go. Probably the fact that you had Nadine next to you, and that you always learn as a couple as well, I think. So there is things that you achieve there together.
Yes, and I think it was clear from the beginning, because I'm at the moment I split my time between it-agile and the new company. So I'm working in both companies. And so it was totally clear that the main part of running the company is Nadine's job. And whenever she asks, I'm happy to help where I can, but she's totally capable of doing it, and I think in a lot of situations it's maybe the most important thing, just to trust someone else and believe in someone else that he's capable of doing it, and then they are, even if they don't know they are.
That I think that is a very important part, supporting people to how would I say it? And supporting people to go where they don't see yet where they can go. That is indeed a very nice way on how we can support people. It's a very powerful way of doing that, and usually we external people, we see that before the others are there. But and sometimes they have a hard time understanding it, and how do you see it? Well, it's you put it in a very nice way, and to like, okay, this is I see that they are capable, and I let them go. And sometimes the hard part is indeed not stepping in to show them where they are capable already, and just not having the time can help in that sense, in the sense that if you're busy in your other companies, like, okay, I know you can do it, and are you sure? Yes, I am. And then all of a sudden it is possible. So that these are indeed very nice achievements to brag about. Thank you for sharing. Let's move to that next question about personal agility. And the reason why I have this in this series is, what I've noticed is that a lot of agilists, we all have our small little things, the way we work, that are actually helping us a lot. And so that's I noticed that we don't always share this enough with the people around us. What are the things that we're actually doing that we should talk a little more about?
Yeah.
I think I have two tips. One is a personal Kanban board. So just to focus myself, to not just start things but also finish them. That's the thing I still do, and I think I won't stop. And it's a very minimal version, but that already helps.
And when you say minimum version, what does that mean? How should I understand that?
Just,
okay,
just
so
this one. Just
16
post-it.
and basically it's it's a very small one, but just having to help you basically focus, because that's
Yes.
what you say. You mentioned something very important. It's not just about starting; it's about finishing something.
Yeah. And the other one is, I think I'm kind of a perfectionist, and I think most people are. And so I love to remind myself about the good enough for now agility rule. So and to just think in increments, and that it's okay to make a small step. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be a step, and that's it. And so that's something I remind myself of when I'm too attached to a plan, and yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think my tip is that whatever you do, whether it's following a plan, planning, having goals, having a strategy, stay flexible and be ready to let go of your own ideas. You know, sometimes we get attached or fall in love with our own ideas, and then we stop being flexible. And I think the whole flexibility thing is important. So it all comes down to the question, what do you want? And even that question will not be answered the same way 2 days later. So it's not done by just asking you once, what do you want? And so
and I like the combination with the both of you, because what do you want, and what you want basically right now, and not create that perfect version. No, what do you want now? Let's have this and let's improve a little bit, but start with that, in a sense, finish, because that's what we do now. And then 2 days from now we might want some a better version or whatever, but let's start doing these things. I really like the combination of these two things together, because it creates a very great dynamic. And yeah, which is at the core of agile, I would say. And sometimes we forget that we want to keep improving. Then we come to that whole dynamic where we sometimes see in the for me, in the we talked about the extreme programming world, and sometimes people want too deep on perfect scripting and coding or whatever. But hey, wait a minute, is that really actually still helping our customer? Well, maybe not. And can we actually release already something to our client so that the client is helped today, and in smaller steps, and then tomorrow we might improve a little bit, but maybe we might focus on something else, because there is another problem that actually needs another solution, and this thing might be good enough for now. That's the kind of thing what I'm hearing. It's very it's at the core of a lot of what we do in agile. It's I really like that, and I like that you bring it back together again to that question you said earlier, what do we want? And it's such a simple question to ask, but it's such a hard question to answer.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, I know that even with my partner, this is something in discussion. What do you want? Okay, even just as simple as what you want for dinner is sometimes really hard to, It's
we have a funny rule for this, and I think it came out of one of our retrospectives. And the rule is, before you ask the other one, what do you want now? Watching TV or whatever, what do you want? You have to say what you want first. So you're not allowed to ask before you have said what you want.
okay.
And it really works fine for us, I think.
More silence
Yes,
sometimes, because
sometimes,
I,
yes.
I don't, I'm not allowed to ask Henning, what do you want? And so I have to
Before
figure
you
out
know what you
I
want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is a very powerful one, because sometimes we ask that at the moment that we don't want to think ourselves, and it's
Yes,
like, okay,
yes.
you tell me what you want, and what you want is,
Yeah.
wait a minute, let's take 5 minutes. Let's first think for ourselves what do.
Yeah.
It's that is indeed a
Yeah.
powerful one.
And I think it's also human. Our brain is just lazy, and so that's it takes energy to think about what you want, of course. Yeah.
It's I think it's a powerful thing, and I think in relationships it's good to it's always good to always think about yourself and not just put it on someone else, and to discuss it at the same time, and to have that conversation, in a sense. That's a powerful one. I definitely I will. I'm not sure what I will do with it, because, of course, if I do this with my partner, we have to agree on that. But it's definitely something we'll discuss. It feels for me already something very powerful on how to deal with that. So thank you for sharing that. That is a very well. If we're talking about personal agility, and we're talking, this is one of the reasons why like I said in the before we started talking, one of the reasons why I like to talk with couples is that we bring in multiple parts of different kind of things, which for me is a whole level of diversity in these conversations, which is different than if I talk to just one person. And that's why I like this so much, to bring that. So thank you for sharing these.
You're welcome.
I want to move to the remote thing. About we talked already about COVID, and that we've learned so much. And some of you, I don't know if you worked remote or not before, but definitely the last 2 years we worked a lot remote. So what have you learned in the last 2 years or before about remote work?
So we joined Christopher's program via Zoom. So we were introduced to Zoom before COVID. And that was really helpful, because I think when the lockdown in what we called lockdown in Germany in March 22 came, I think we had 2 days to our next training.
Yeah.
And the next training then was online. So
Wow! So you had 2 days to basically
had 2 days to
rearrange everything.
To rearrange everything, and learning to use Miro. We didn't use Miro the first one. No,
I think we just had slides or something.
Yeah. However, but we managed, and
so you didn't cancel that training. You said,
no.
We have that training. We'll do it. We don't know how to do it, but in 2 days we'll have that training.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. And to be honest, I could have never imagined to do a 2 or 3 day training online. I would have said, you are crazy to think I could do this. And I think,
like many people would have thought, 3 weeks or 3 hours before the lockdown, I would say.
And it's so cool. I really love it. And I really love the possibilities we have now. It has been the same way before, but we can apply this now for more trainings. The Responsibility Immersion Program is 1 call every week for 16 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's only 90 minutes every week. And it's so cool to have this as a learning model. You don't have to travel somewhere where you wouldn't go for 90 minutes. Of course, you go there for 3 days. And after 3 days, you had too much input, and then you forget everything, and 3 weeks later you can't remember anything from what you have learned in the training.
And we meet people all over the world. So
yes,
different time zones.
So
Yeah.
yes, so being forced by the pandemic to use this stuff to make this experience, I'm really grateful for it. I'm really, really, really grateful. And of course, we had to learn some things about how to facilitate good remote meetings, but we also had to learn how to facilitate good in-person meetings. So it's kind of normal that you have to learn about it. And I don't want back in the office, actually. I like working from home, and I think it's really cool. I think this year I was 3 or 4 days in the office, and 3 days of it was a training, an in-person training.
Okay,
But the rest
so,
of the year, I only worked remote from home, and I love it.
okay. And so is there, well, you said I had to learn it. Like, I think I really like the phrase you said, is that we had to learn to work, to do facilitation physically. We sometimes seem to forget because we've done it, and we at school there was, yeah, so we learned a lot of tricks about in-person training, in-person things that we don't always realize that we learned. But now all of a sudden the whole world had like a day or two to learn remote, and some of us have been doing it, like you said, have been doing using Teams before, but a lot of the things were learned in just a couple of days by the whole world almost at the same time. And that's why I want to bring this out, because we sometimes forget what we've learned so quickly. So is there anything that jumps out of you that you say, this is something that I've learned over the last 2 years about remote work that is a good trick to share?
I think a lot of people do that, but sometimes we forget it even in two-person remote settings. I think it's really a good idea to have a shared space. A shared space for some notes, like a lot of people now have a Miro board or something like that, and use that always in meetings. And I think that's really helpful, like the whiteboard is helpful,
or the flip chart.
Or the flip chart if you are in in-person situations.
Just a place where you can share your thoughts, and everybody else in that same training, whatever it is, yeah, like you say, if it's a flip chart, and people could say, okay, wait a minute, I can add a post-it or I can do something, and doing that in a remote setting. That's what I'm hearing.
And it's important to have this, the capability that everyone can create something on this shared space. I know a lot of people that don't have their cameras on and are used to follow someone else's PowerPoint slides. And that's the worst possible remote situation, I think, for most of the things I want to do, at least. Yeah. So
it might be appropriate.
Yeah,
for
it
some
might
settings.
be appropriate for some training issues or something like that. But normally you want people to be able to co-create and
to get involved,
and really follow and be part of it.
A little bit like when you create, I mean, I make the link also with workshops, is that you could have in-person training, and that's indeed a flip chart, and it's one way. I'm in front of the classroom, and I'm telling you what you want to learn. Or it's a workshop where, okay, no, there's a flip chart, and do you have an idea? Okay, you put it on, and that's a collaboration. And what you're saying is that remote, you can do the same thing. And we sometimes forget that remote, to have that thing, we also then need a shared space where we can share some of that thoughts.
Yeah.
I think that's a very good observation, because we sometimes seem to forget it. We think, oh, if everybody puts cameras on and everybody's speaking, wait a minute, we need also to have a shared location for our thoughts. That's what I'm hearing, and that brings a lot of common understanding, I would say. The fact that we collaboratively write something there, that brings a lot of value there.
Yeah.
That's very powerful. It's well, I've it's the moment you say it, it's like, yes, of course it's right, but nobody has made it that explicitly. I've been using a lot of, well, I personally like to use Google Drive since years, and
Yeah.
so I create many documents that are sometimes edited by more than 100 people, and it's so powerful, and it
Yeah.
works so well, and I don't even think about it. It's like, just okay, the moment up, and a Miro or a mural, it all works in a different way because it's much more visual, but it's the same idea.
Yes.
When we work together, we can look at each other, but it's more important is that what are we sharing together. And I think that's, for me, that's even more important. The video, it helps, but understanding your thoughts and seeing you what you write makes me understand much better on that level.
Yeah.
Or if I explain something and you type it out, then I see, okay, you got what I said or you didn't get what I
Yes.
said, and you might be nodding and you might be saying, yes, I understand it, but then I see what you write and I realize, no, you don't get it. You understand me wrong. And that means I didn't explain the way I want to explain it, but reading it together, then we can, both of us, the three or the five or the however how many people are in the meeting, we can collaboratively change something and create something that is very powerful. Thank you for sharing that, because that I feel that it's indeed something that a lot more people should realize. So that's a very powerful tip there. I want to move to that next question about a book, and I'm not sure if it's a book that you both read or something else that you want to talk about. But what is there as a book where we can talk about?
I think we have one book that we heard together as an audiobook in the car, and so that's Mark Manson's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, and that was just
This one, huh?
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, and that's just entertaining, and I think he has a lot of inspiring thoughts, and of course the frequency of the use of the word fuck in the beginning is really high. So if you don't like that, don't read it. But
And actually, the title is a lie, because it's.
I was
it's not,
about to say I read the
Yeah.
book, or I listened to the book as well,
Yes.
so I understand completely what Nadine says about the frequency. But basically, it's almost the opposite. It's a really good marketing strategy about not
Yes.
giving a fuck, but actually, it's the opposite about how can you really focus on what you really care about. What actually, again, the message, the question that you said earlier on, what do I want? This
Yes.
book is about what do I want.
Yeah.
And not giving a fuck about what other people want. That's basically the kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
I think for us it completely is in line with our responsibility thinking, that you choose what to give a fuck about and what not. So if you are angry, it's your choice that you made, that you want to give a fuck about whatever made you angry. Yeah.
Well, and it reminds me on something that happened recently at the client. Well, and I haven't seen a lot of parties. For me, I don't I don't think it's bad to be angry. I prefer to be angry because it means I care. The moment that I'm no longer angry, you should really worry, because that means I don't care about it anymore. And of course, using strong words is I know at a certain at my current client, I use too strong words, and the disadvantage was that people stopped listening to me because they heard words that they didn't like to hear. So I learned a lot about that experience as well. But for me, the fact that I was angry was still okay. I could have used other words to make sure that people kept listening to me. But the fact that I was angry meant that really there is a message there, that this is really important to me, and that's the thing. And this is where, yeah, I no longer. I understand why people don't like the word fuck and everything, but it really, there is a message that, hey, this is something we care about, and this is where well, and it's like what you say, Henning. What do we care about? I don't care about strong words. I don't care about how people look and whatever. I care about what people think, and that's the kind of message that I want to bring. Sometimes in some other corporations, it's like, okay, the word is so bad that okay, we want to blame you for using a certain word. And I understand that if the message is too strong, that people feel so much like, okay, what are you saying? um but the anger or the emotion is important.
Yeah, and it has an energy that we can use. So yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Both negative emotions, positive emotions, it's the energy, what it's about, huh? And we can be very happy, and that's the thing. And I've seen in corporations where you say, oh, no, no, you're angry, you have to leave at the door. It's like, wait a minute, because basically then you want the flat line. Because you don't, if you don't allow me to have negative feelings, I probably won't have positive feelings either, because you're flattening things out. And yeah, I don't want that. Well, if you want that version of me, I'm probably not the right person for your corporation at that moment.
Yeah.
Or at least I don't want to work in that kind of
Yeah.
corporation. That's more the kind of work to do that. And that book is really good at that, I think. It really cares it. I understand the part where you said the title is a lie, because it's there's a lot of marketing in that, but that's of course how books work and how marketing works and everything. But it has a very strong. The book makes a lot of people think about, indeed, what do you want, as a person, as a company, as a team, or whatever. So that's.
Yeah.
This is indeed a great book to share things about. Thank you very much for
And
sharing
I think
that.
it makes the point that we have a choice where we want to give a fuck. So what we want to care about. And
Yes, and that is it's yeah, it starts with the premise that we don't care, in the sense that I don't care what other people think about me and whatever. But it really goes, okay, but what do I do care? I do care about some whatever value that means, and for you and me it's different. And of course, if you're in a couple, I hope you care about similar kind of things, because if you care about two opposite things, you might run into troubles in your partnership. Not for everything. I mean, you might care about certain kind of ice cream and your partner about different kind of ice cream. That's still fine. If you want to cook together, that's already a little bit different. But if you want to just if you're on a restaurant, we can both order our different kind of ice cream, and that still is fine. But of course, if we want to create a company, if we want to raise a child, if we want to, I don't know, buy a house, even at some kind of levels, preferable, we care about the same kind of thing. If I want to have a super cheap house where I can live and don't have a garden, because I don't want to work in the garden, because I don't like to do that work, and my partner wants a very expensive garden that is a lot of sun, a lot of whatever, yeah, then we have trouble if you don't care about the same kind of thing. And for me, the book brings that a lot. It talks a lot about basically discovering what you care about, not what the rest of the world cares about, and that's the kind of thing. And then all mixed with strong language. That, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is indeed an interesting one. And did you discover that book together, or how did that work with the two of you?
I think actually I saw
A YouTube
a
video.
YouTube video from the author, Mark Manson, where he, in I think about 40 minutes, sums up the book. And it was funny enough that I was interested in knowing the whole book.
And then you said to Nadine, let's listen to this together, something like that.
Yeah.
That's
we love to listen together to such things, because then we immediately can reflect on it, and so it for me, I just remember things better than when I immediately talk about it with someone.
So do I understand correctly that you kind of then pause the book and then say, do this is part, do you agree this is how that works with the two of you?
Yeah.
Okay, I really like that, because I'm part of a few reading clubs, and basically it's kind of the same thing. You read a certain part of it, and then the next whatever week or whatever you discuss it with multiple people, and this is how I recognize, or I remember more things of this. And sometimes after a reading club, it's like, oh, I didn't read it that way. Let me look back at that different part, and if you listen to a book, then you probably scroll back a little bit and you say, okay, let's listen again to what Mark says. Oh yeah, he actually says that. Oh no, he doesn't say that, and that creates things. And because for me, I like, and that's how I hear it in what you say, is I like a book as an inspiration. I sometimes learn something completely different from a book than what the author says, but it's like, it's an inspiration. Then I have a conversation with a friend or a colleague or a partner, whatever, and then I learn something else. And the author might not agree with me anymore, but I don't care. It's like, it's about the learning experience in a sense. Huh?
Yeah.
And so you have that a lot as a couple. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
That's
Fortunately.
That's really nice. You what was the last sentence? I didn't hear it.
I just said fortunately. Yeah.
Okay, so
I'm happy about it.
Yeah, that's good. That's good that you're happy about it. Well, if it would be a different experience, or if you would not be happy about it, that's kind of would be strange, of course. Let's move to for me, one of the most interesting questions is that, what question do you think I should ask also, and what's the answer?
I think the question would be for us, why don't you believe in good or bad? And
wow.
The answer would be because we are more free, powerful, and at choice when we don't think in black or white, but when we accept that nothing in the world is objectively bad or good. It's not that easy. There are, there's, so we catch ourselves in, for example, saying, "Oh, that's bad," or "That's not the way this should be done," or something like that. And then now we correct ourselves then and switch to, "Oh, that's not something I like," or "I like that a lot," or something like that. And that just changes so much, and opens the door for so much more ideas. And so that was also a discovery in the journey with Christopher Avery, that that is this belief in right or wrong, and just this black and white thinking, That really changed a lot for me.
There's lots of shades in between black and white. Basically,
Yes.
that's what you're saying, and yeah, it's
Yes.
yeah, yeah. For me, I keep trying to come up with the right phrase, but there is something I always said is that there's always at least three sides to the truth. There's your side, my side, and the real thing, and probably a lot of tons
Yes.
somewhere in between. And it's very tempting to think, of course, I'm right and you're wrong,
Yeah.
but no, it's not that simple. And yeah, I have three children, so when where we're having discussions, it's very tempting to say you're right, you're wrong, and it's like no, it's actually a lot more complex than that.
Yeah.
Um, and we're actually living in a world like with COVID, with everything that's happening, that is a lot more black and white, or at least the world wants us to move in this person is good and that politician is good and that politician is bad. And well, the even I've well, you're both from Germany. I know that I once read a certain part where they said this is I don't remember anymore what it was, but they made a statement that made it look very good, and then it turns out to be, oh, this is actually a statement that Hitler made. So he actually did some things that sound good, but when you how possible could it be that a person like Hitler thought about something good? Well, there is no black and white. There's definitely a lot of bad about that person, but still, he might have had ideas that some people consider good. Okay, there is no black and white in a lot of that. And our world wants us to move a lot to black and white for whatever reason.
Yeah, of
Uh,
course. And I think it's the world would be so much easier then, but it's not the world. It's not reality. And I think what happens when I think for myself, oh, this is wrong, then I stop thinking. I just say
mm,
this is wrong, and that's just a statement that would keep me below the line, and I stop thinking, and I'm not creative anymore, and that's why I don't think that saying this is bad is bad. It's just not as useful as saying I don't like it, because then I'm in contact with my intention, and that is helpful. But I'm not evaluating something. I'm making up my mind, and that's a different thing.
Yeah.
and you're focusing again on what you want and not on
Yes.
labeling something as good or
Yeah.
bad. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Sorry, Henning, I interrupted.
no problem. And especially when I do that in discussions with others, I'm making the point that this is just my opinion or my perspective. It's not the truth, you know. And people say, oh, we now have 4 different outcomes out of this retrospectives, but we are only allowed to have 2. So this is bad now. So, and it's not. It's maybe your opinion that it's more helpful to just have 2, but it's not the truth.
It is what it is.
It is what it is, and we are not so often really talking about the truth. We are actually most times talking about opinions.
It reminds me of I one of the things I like to use a lot in retrospective is starting with feelings that what came from the core protocols, the check-in. So mad, glad, sad, afraid. And when I learned about it, when I started to use it, at some point I realized, or I learned that my oldest had learned the exact same technique at school. Only at school he was allowed to have only one feeling. So you were either mad, glad, sad, and for him it's like no. And it was like, no, you can have multiple feelings at the same time. It's allowed.
Yeah.
I can understand why in school they want to limit it. Well, I'm not sure I understand, but okay, they choose that for whatever reason, and that's fine. But here in our house, you can say I'm mad and then whatever, and that just having multiple options at the same time, it's just like it's actually. And this is why, for me, these are the 4 basic emotions. And when you ask that to people in retros, it's like, yeah, they're not. I can be both mad and glad at the same time about something that happened. Yeah. Yeah, it feels very strange, but yeah, I can be mad that something happened and glad that it happened, because whatever that there is happening in that world, and just having multiple options there helps a lot of people. But allowing ourselves to combine these emotions is very strange for a lot of people.
Yeah.
You need to be mad about that. You need to be sad about that. Well, I can both be mad and sad, and maybe have a whole mix of emotions about something.
Yeah.
And like you say, it's not good or bad. It just is, because emotions, that's what they are. They are there. And yeah, if I mean just recently I talked, and it's a little bit a hard topic, but I talked about a person that died, that died after a very long illness. And so you can be both sad that this person is gone and glad that the suffering is over.
Yes, sure.
And you can have all these emotions, and it's not that, oh, you cannot be glad that somebody died. Well, actually I can. I'm happy that that suffering is over, and it's okay. And just having that conversation and saying, well, okay, I'm of course still sad that that person is gone and I miss that person, but I'm also happy that this person has his suffering is over. And just having these emotions, and like you say, it's not good or bad, it is just.
Yeah.
And for me, that it's very nice that you point that out, that yeah, it's not good or bad, it's there's multiple things there, and on all these things in between. Thank you for sharing that, because that is indeed, our world is so much wanting to go to good, bad, and like you say, Nadine, we have the impression it makes our life easier, but that just fake. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, and a computer, of course, wants to say it's binary, it's 0 and 1, and well, this is why we're struggling with the quantum computers and everything, where where it will be both right and wrong at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, because that's how the world is. Okay, I want to move to that next question about who should I invite next? Who do you want to invite next?
Yeah, we would like to invite Julie Diamond. She wrote the book Power: A User's Guide, and I know
I
her
think
from,
that's
yeah,
her. That's
that's
Julie.
the one. Yeah.
Oof, I didn't check with the picture up front with you, so it would have been a little bit
Yeah,
bad if I would have.
that's her.
Uh,
Yeah, and I met her, I think 2 or 3 years ago. I attended a training, and yeah, I think it's the topic power is often a taboo, and especially in agile organizations, or in organizations with flat hierarchies, they think everything is fine because we don't have a hierarchy, but power is still in play. It always is.
mhm.
And so that was really interesting. And Julie is just fun and has just such a profound knowledge and experience concerning power. So that would be nice to see a conversation with her.
Thank you, because I really like indeed the idea to think about power. Somehow, a lot of people in the agile world think it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
We want self-organizing teams, and then there is no power. No, even if it's a power of a team, it still is a power. At some point, there is also, well, if there is a big problem, you also want someone to just say, okay, for example, if the example I always give is, if there is a fire, you don't want to just sit around and say, what exit will we take? No, you want someone with the knowledge to just take the decision and say, that's the nearest exit, or that's a safe place, or whatever. That is a powerful decision. That is still okay, and there is a lot of other things in between. So I'm looking forward to learn a lot from that to learn that. So thank you for inviting her.
Yeah,
I want to go to to still ask people if they want to get in contact. You already talked about your new company. So what's the best way where people can find more about that?
I think the best way is our webpage. So it's selbstführen.de in German.
That's the one, I think. Yeah.
And it actually, I'm sorry for it, but it's at least interesting for 100 million people who are able to speak German and read German. And sorry for the
So
rest of
you
us.
don't you
have
don't
to
have a
find us
version
on
in English
LinkedIn
yet.
otherwise. Yeah, genau.
It's yeah, that I didn't realize it because the word is in English. In German, I didn't really even think, is it in German or is it in English? Because you're both fluently English speaking. So yeah, it's but at the same time, I recognize a lot when we create websites, we kind of think in our personal language, and we sometimes don't always realize that. But I can imagine a lot of what you're talking about, that it's interesting to the rest of the world as well. So, but I can also imagine that you want to focus just on the Germans. That is already a market on its own, I think.
Yes, of course it is. And our own learning experience with the responsibility process improved when we did the translation of Christopher's book. So I don't know whether you remember the book is read in English, the original book by Christopher.
But I know that you translated it,
Yeah,
because
and the blue one is our translation together with a colleague from it-agile, Sandra. We did the translation. And the reason was that we think this stuff is not so easy to process and to understand. And it helps a lot to do that in the language you really are able to understand best. So that's also our motivation of doing Christopher's program also in German. And I think it's helpful to, and it.
I fully agree there. I did a leadership workshop with my father. Now, I back in 2004 I started it, and at that time at the local XP community, all sessions were in English, and we said, well, sorry, but this one will just do locally in Dutch, because talking about feelings, talking about ourselves, our leadership, it just works much better in our own language.
Yes.
And we did the same workshop in Paris, and there we did it in France, but we said the same thing. It's just in the local language, and it's just doing it in your own language. It's already hard to talk about whatever, about leadership and whatever, and in this game about your responsibility. If you can do it in your own language, it's already tremendously hard. So translating into another language, and then everybody else is translating, and no, it's I definitely understand why there is a lot of value in sticking to your own language. And once you've done that, applying it in another context and in applying it in another language, that's a different ball game. But
Yeah.
first, understanding it yourself helps it if you can use your own languages. And I've learned a lot about the agile world, for example, that just using the word velocity, for example, it took me a few months to understand the word velocity, and just having that, and thinking about it in my own language, discussing it with some friends in my own language, made me understand it much better before I could again apply it into English. And we don't always do that. I think we sometimes, yeah, and I think a lot of native English speakers don't always realize that how hard it sometimes is for other native speakers to keep translating it. And I've actually noticed, and I think I said it already multiple times on this podcast, is that when I work with other people who are also non-native English speakers, that we understand each other better, because we sometimes realize, okay, wait a minute, if I use a word like velocity or something else, there's multiple meanings, but we'll focus on the thing that we understand. And the English people, they have a whole context around it that I don't understand. And all the other English speakers, they all have the same context. And that makes it sometimes a lot harder. And then the non-native English speakers, like the Germans, the Dutch people, the French people, we know that, oh, we're only understanding part of it. And so I use a lot easier languages, a lot easier words that I know I understand it. Where as a native speaker, you sometimes use very, how would I say it, rich words, but rich words that have so many other contexts that sometimes it makes it harder. And by focusing, like you say, in your German language on something that you can go for the rich context then.
Yes.
Yeah.
So thank you for doing that. Thank you also for translating. I know that it means a lot for Christopher. And I've noticed for myself that, well, one of the things I translated a few, or I helped translate a few books with a community. And I got a lot of pushback from people saying, well, if it's community translated, it's not as well translated as an official translator, which is fully true. I'm not going to say that this is wrong, but the advantage of having it translated by people who understand the concept and who might not be official translators, it means so much more into the context of where it was created. And I think this is what, especially in the agile world, it's so much powerful because and like you said, you learn the language, you learn to translate, you learn how that works, and then you translate that book. You understand the concept of what Christopher wrote much better by translating it, but at the same time, you help so many other people in doing that. So that's a very powerful thing. So thank you. Well, I won't read it in German because it's well, the one of the I had 4 years, no 4 years, no I had 3 or 4 years of German, but last time I went to Germany and I tried to speak German, someone told me in Germany that they didn't understand Dutch, so that's when I stopped speaking German because
I'm sorry for that.
Yeah.
no, but I understand it because the idea in German and Dutch, there's a lot of words that resemble and that sound the same, but that have a completely different meaning.
Yeah.
And when you try to use it, you think it's the same, but actually it's the complete opposite, or something else, and so it doesn't help. And I learned a lot from it. I realized how bad I was at German for multiple things. I also know at what part in my life I learned about it, and I learned it from a teacher that was really very technical at the way that didn't interest me. And now I'm much more interested in languages and everything around it, but I also understand why I'm so bad at German. Maybe at some point I will learn it again. I'm not at that part in my life at this moment, but I do understand how the languages are totally different. German and Dutch, for outsiders, they might sound the same, but they're totally different languages. That are, at least from my point of view.
I don't know Dutch, so, but I think you're right. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank at least both of you for your time. It's I said up front it could take about somewhere between an hour and a half, maybe a little bit. It's just over 2 hours, I see now. But it was a very interesting conversation to have both of you there. Like I said, it's a different kind of dynamic if I interview a couple with these questions. So I learned a lot. It was very fun. It's interesting, Henning, because I know your name for a very long time. I have some friends that worked at it-agile in the past, and so you're a person that I always wanted to meet. So I'm glad that we could take that time, and I learned. So it's wonderful to do that. So thank you very much.
And thank you for having us.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for watching Who's Agile, where the stories of agilists come to life. I hope you liked today's interview. Subscribe if you're not subscribed and want to get to know other agilists.